The scent of pine and something else, something wild and untamed, filled the small chamber where they had left me to wait. Outside, a late autumn storm battered against ancient stone walls, wind howling like a creature in pain. I drew my thin robe tighter around my shoulders, but it did little against the chill that had settled deep in my bones. A chill born not just from the cold, but from the knowledge of what awaited me. Tonight, I would share the Alpha King's bed. If I survived until dawn, he would set me free. I paced the worn stone floor, my bare feet nearly silent against the cold surface. The chamber was sparse, a small wooden table with a pitcher of water, a tarnished mirror hanging crookedly on the wall, and a single window too high to reach and too small to escape through. My reflection caught my eye as I passed, pale blonde hair falling in tangled waves past my shoulders, skin like porcelain, eyes wide with fear. I hardly recognized myself. 3 days ago, I had been Elizabeth Winters, nothing more than the daughter of our pack's healer, invisible to most and forgettable to the rest. Now I was a sacrifice, an offering to appease the newly crowned Alpha King after our pack's failed rebellion against his rule. "Remember who you are," my mother had whispered just before they took me away. She had pressed something cold and metallic into my palm, her silver pendant, a crescent moon holding a single star. It had been passed down through generations of healers in our family. "When strength fails, wisdom endures," she had told me. Her final words before guards dragged me from our home. I clutched the pendant now, feeling its familiar edges dig into my palm. The silver should burn werewolf skin, but my touch had always been different. As the daughter of a healer, I carried an immunity to silver, a trait considered useless in a world where physical strength determined everything. But Mother had always insisted it was a gift, not a curse. A sudden silence fell outside my door, interrupting my thoughts. The guards who had been murmuring ceased their conversation. Heavy footsteps approached, and my heart lurched against my ribs. Too soon. It was too soon. The sun had barely set. The wooden door swung open without warning. Instead of guards, a woman entered, tall and severe with dark hair pulled into a tight knot at the nape of her neck. The beta's mate, I realized, recognizing her from the stories whispered among our pack. "It's time," she said, her voice betraying no emotion. "The Alpha King doesn't like to be kept waiting." My throat constricted. I was told it would be at midnight. She assessed me with cold eyes. "Plans change. Follow me." No choice. I never had a choice. I followed her out into the stone corridor, dimly lit by torches that cast long, grotesque shadows against the walls. My legs felt weak beneath me, each step a conscious effort. Guards flanked us as we walked, their expressions impassive but their eyes curious. Everyone wanted to see the human sacrifice, the weak healer's daughter who would likely not survive the night. We climbed a winding staircase that seemed to go on forever, spiraling upward through the heart of the fortress. I had heard stories of this place since childhood. The Northern Fortress, home to the Alpha King's line for centuries. It was said to be impenetrable, built into the side of a mountain and protected by ancient magic as well as brute strength. No one entered without permission, few left alive. As we ascended, the corridor grew wider, the stones smoother. Tapestries depicting great battles and hunts adorned the walls. In each one, wolves tore apart their enemies, fangs bared in triumph, eyes gleaming with bloodlust. I averted my gaze, focusing instead on the floor beneath my feet. "Do you know why you're here?" the woman asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I kept my eyes down. "I'm the sacrifice. For the rebellion." She made a sound, something between a laugh and a scoff. "Is that what they told you? That it's about the rebellion?" Before I could ask what she meant, we reached the top of the staircase. A massive wooden door loomed before us, carved with intricate designs of wolves running beneath a full moon. 2 guards stood at attention, their postures stiffening as we approached. "The girl," the woman announced. "For the Alpha King." The guards exchanged a glance I couldn't interpret. One of them knocked on the door, 3 sharp raps that echoed in the quiet corridor. "Enter," came a voice from within, deep and commanding, vibrating with power. My heart stuttered. The guards pushed open the doors, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The woman nudged me forward. "Remember," she whispered, her lips barely moving. "Dawn comes eventually." Then I was alone, the doors closing behind me with a heavy thud that felt like a death sentence. The Alpha King's chambers were nothing like I had imagined. Instead of the ostentatious display of wealth I expected, the room was almost austere. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, flames casting dancing shadows across stone floors covered with thick furs. Bookshelves lined another wall, filled with leather-bound volumes. The bed I was meant to share, stood imposing against the far wall, draped in dark furs and linens. But it was empty. The room appeared vacant save for the crackling fire. I stood frozen by the door, clutching my mother's pendant so tightly that its edges bit into my palm. The scent was stronger here, that wild, untamed smell of forest and night and something dangerous. "Do you plan to stand there all night?" The voice came from behind me. I whirled around, nearly losing my balance. He stood in the shadows near a balcony I hadn't noticed before, his silhouette outlined by moonlight. Tall, taller than any man in my pack, broad-shouldered and utterly still in that predatory way only alphas could manage. The Alpha King. Alaric Blackwood's successor, the wolf who had slaughtered half our pack for daring to challenge his claim to the throne. "No, My voice failed me as he stepped from the shadows. I had expected a monster, a battle-scarred warrior with cruelty etched into every feature. What I hadn't expected was this man who couldn't be more than 30, with features that might have been carved from marble, high cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with stubble, and eyes that shifted between gray and silver in the firelight. His dark hair fell in waves to his shoulders, and a thin scar ran from his right temple to his jawline, the only imperfection on an otherwise flawless face. "You're afraid," he said. Not a question, but an observation. He moved toward me with fluid grace, each step deliberate, measured. I forced myself to hold my ground, though every instinct screamed at me to retreat. "Wouldn't you be?" I managed to say, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, that I had dared to speak. He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing its prey. "You're the healer's daughter," he said. "Elizabeth." Hearing my name on his lips sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. "Yes." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "Do you know why you're here, Elizabeth?" The beta's mate had asked the same question. I sensed there was more to this than I understood. "I'm a sacrifice," I said. "Payment for my pack's rebellion." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Is that what they told you?" He reached out, and I flinched as his fingers brushed a strand of pale hair from my face. "Your alpha sent 20 women as potential mates. I rejected them all. Then he sent you, not as a mate, but as a sacrifice. Does that not seem strange to you?" Confusion swept through me. Our alpha, Gregory Caldwell, had told me I was chosen because I was expendable, a healer's daughter with no fighting skills, no status. But the way the Alpha King spoke... "I don't understand," I whispered. He turned away, moving toward the fireplace. "Your alpha feared me choosing his daughter, or one of his prized female warriors, so he sent the weak ones first, knowing I would reject them. Then he sent you, hoping I would kill you, and his debt would be paid without losing anyone valuable." Each word was a blow. I had known I was considered worthless among my pack, the strange girl who could touch silver, who preferred books to fighting, but to hear it confirmed so bluntly. "Then kill me and be done with it," I said, sudden anger replacing fear, "if that's what everyone expects." He turned back to me, something like interest flickering in his silver eyes. "And if I don't want to kill you, then what do you want?" A dangerous smile curved his lips. "To understand why your alpha is so eager to be rid of you, to discover what secrets you hold that frighten him so much he would rather send you to die than keep you close." My breath caught. "I hold no secrets. I'm nothing. No one is nothing, little healer." He stepped closer again. "Tonight, you will sleep in my bed, as promised, but not for the reasons your pack believes." He reached out again, this time his fingers brushing against the pendant I still clutched in my hand. Surprise registered on his face. Silver? You can touch silver? I instinctively pulled back, tucking the pendant into my robe. A birth defect, nothing more. His eyes locked with mine, intense and searching. A rare gift, not a defect. One I haven't seen in over a century. He paused, studying me with new interest. The bed is yours for tonight. I have matters to attend to. We will speak again at dawn, if you're still here. He moved toward the door, then stopped. You're not a prisoner, Elizabeth. The door will remain unlocked. You can leave at any time. His eyes held mine. But if you stay until dawn, I will tell you truths your alpha has kept from you your entire life. The choice is yours. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the chamber of the most feared werewolf in the Northern Territories, with an unlocked door and a mind full of questions that suddenly seemed more terrifying than the prospect of death. I sank onto the edge of the massive bed, my legs no longer able to support me. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside my mind, an even greater tempest was brewing. Stay until dawn, learn the truth, or flee now and return to a pack that had willingly sacrificed me. What truths could possibly be worth the risk of remaining in the Alpha King's lair? As if in answer, my mother's pendant seemed to grow warm against my skin, and her words echoed in my mind. When strength fails, wisdom endures. I had until dawn to decide if wisdom meant staying to face the unknown, or running from truths I might not be ready to hear. Sleep eluded me as the night deepened. I paced the Alpha King's chambers, examining the books on his shelves, ancient tomes on pack history, warfare, and surprisingly, healing arts. My fingers traced their spines, wondering what secrets they contained. Several times I approached the unlocked door, hand hovering over the latch, only to retreat again. The storm outside intensified. Rain lashed against the windows, and lightning periodically illuminated the room in harsh white flashes, followed by thunder that shook the stone walls. I wrapped myself in a fur throw from the bed, seeking warmth as I considered my options. Return to a pack that saw me as worthless? Stay and face whatever truths the Alpha King claimed to possess? Neither choice offered comfort. I moved to the balcony door, cracking it open to feel the wild air. The scent of rain and pine rushed in, along with the distant howls of wolves, patrol guards perhaps, or wild wolves seeking shelter from the storm. The fortress clung to the mountainside, and from this height, I could see dark forests stretching endlessly below, occasionally illuminated by lightning. Freedom lay somewhere in that darkness, yet it seemed as unreachable as the stars hidden behind storm clouds. A sound at the chamber door made me turn sharply. My heart hammered against my ribs, but it wasn't the Alpha King returning. A young woman entered bearing a tray. She couldn't have been much older than my 19 years, with dark hair and wary eyes that widened when she saw me standing by the balcony. "Forgive me," she said, bobbing a quick curtsy. "I thought you might be hungry." I hadn't realized how famished I was until the aroma of fresh bread and soup reached me. "Thank you," I said, approaching cautiously. She set the tray on a small table near the fire. "I'm Mira," she offered, arranging the food with practiced movements. "The king said you might need something to eat." "He did?" I couldn't hide my surprise. Mira nodded, her eyes darting to mine, then away again. "He said you've had a difficult journey." I almost laughed at the understatement. That's one way to describe being dragged from your home as a sacrifice. Her hands stilled. "Is that what they told you? That you're a sacrifice?" Again, that same question. "What else would I be?" Mira looked toward the door as if fearful of being overheard. "It's not my place to say, miss. But," she hesitated, then reached into her pocket, withdrawing a small cloth bundle. "The old healer asked me to give you this, said you might need it." I unwrapped the bundle with trembling fingers to find a small vial of amber liquid. "The old healer? You mean Alara?" Mira nodded. "She serves the northern packs, has for longer than anyone remembers." I uncorked the vial and inhaled. The scent of herbs and honey with an undertone of something bitter, moonroot extract, a powerful sedative and pain reliever, used only for the most severe injuries. "Why would Alara send this?" She said, "If the night grows too difficult, 3 drops under your tongue will help you sleep without dreams." Mira whispered. But she hopes you won't need it. Before I could question her further, Mira moved toward the door. I'll return for the tray in the morning. She paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. Good luck, miss. Then she was gone, leaving me with a meal, a mysterious potion, and even more questions than before. I ate slowly, savoring the rich soup and warm bread, perhaps my last decent meal depending on what dawn would bring. The fire had died down to glowing embers, casting the room in shadowy red light. After finishing, I found myself drawn to the massive bed. Despite my fear, exhaustion was taking its toll. I sat on the edge, running my hands over the soft furs. The entire bed was draped in pelts and fine linens, a sharp contrast to the thin straw mattress I'd slept on my entire life. I slipped beneath the covers, still wrapped in my robe, my mother's pendant clutched in one hand and Alara's vial tucked safely in a pocket. As I lay there, staring at the stone ceiling, memories washed over me, fragments of childhood that suddenly seemed significant in ways I hadn't understood before. My mother teaching me to identify herbs by scent alone, blindfolded in our small garden. Your senses are sharper than you know, Elizabeth. Trust them. The village children avoiding me after I'd healed a wounded fox they'd been tormenting. Which child, they'd whispered behind my back, talks to animals? Alpha Gregory's strange interest in my training, insisting I focus on brewing remedies, rather than the deeper healing arts my mother wished to teach me. The girl has her place, he'd told my mother. Don't fill her head with ideas above her station. And most puzzling, the day my mother had caught me touching her silver instruments without harm. Instead of the amazement I'd expected, terror had flashed across her face. That night, I'd overheard her arguing with my father. They'll find out eventually. We can't protect her forever. What had they been protecting me from? The bed was surprisingly comfortable, enveloping me in warmth that fought against the chill of fear. Despite my determination to remain alert, my eyes grew heavy. Just for a moment, I told myself as I drifted toward sleep. Just a moment's rest. I awoke with a gasp, disoriented in the unfamiliar darkness. The fire had died completely, leaving the room black as pitch. Something had woken me, a sound or a presence. I lay perfectly still, straining my senses. Bad dreams? The voice came from the direction of the balcony. I jerked upright, clutching the furs to my chest. Who's there? I demanded, though I already knew. The Alpha King stepped into a shaft of moonlight that now streamed through a break in the storm clouds. He had changed from his formal attire into simpler clothes, a black shirt open at the throat and dark trousers. He looked almost normal, if not for the predatory grace with which he moved, and those silver eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. You spoke in your sleep, he said, moving to rekindle the fire. Names. Your mother's, I presume. And others. I swallowed hard. Why are you watching me sleep? Flames sprang to life under his careful attention, illuminating his profile. These are my chambers, little healer. Where else would I be? You said you had matters to attend to. And now they're attended to. He straightened, turning to face me fully. You stayed. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. I had nowhere else to go. A practical decision. He moved to a cabinet near the bookshelves and withdrew 2 glasses and a decanter of amber liquid. Or perhaps curiosity is stronger than fear. I remained silent, watching as he poured the drinks. When he approached, offering one to me, I hesitated. It's not poisoned, he said with a hint of amusement. If I wanted you dead, there are far more efficient methods. Reluctantly, I accepted the glass, though I had no intention of drinking from it. You said you would tell me truths at dawn. It's not dawn yet. He sat on the edge of the bed, far enough away that I didn't feel immediately threatened, but close enough that I could detect his scent. Pine and smoke, and something wild. The storm has broken. Dawn isn't far off. He studied me over the rim of his glass. But first, I have questions of my own. I tensed. What questions? Tell me about your mother. Of all the things he might have asked, this surprised me most. She's a healer, like her mother before her. And what else? I frowned. What do you mean, what else? He leaned slightly closer. What else is she, Elizabeth? What gifts does she possess beyond healing? My throat went dry. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. His eyes dropped to where my pendant rested against my collarbone. The immunity to silver, the connection to animals I've heard whispered about, your unusually acute senses. These aren't common traits among werewolves, are they? I shook my head slowly. They're anomalies. Defects. Is that what they told you? His voice had hardened. That you're defective. The directness of his question struck like a physical blow. No one had ever said it so plainly, but I'd heard the whispers, seen the sidelong glances. I'm different, I said finally. Weaker. I can't shift fully. Only partial transformations. My wolf never fully emerges. Understanding dawned in his eyes, and for that, they treated you as lesser. It wasn't a question, so I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Has it occurred to you, he said carefully, that you might not be a werewolf at all? I stared at him. What else would I be? He set his glass aside, his expression intense. There are other beings in this world, Elizabeth. Rarer beings, with gifts that werewolves both covet and fear. My heart began to race. What are you saying? I believe you're a Lumina, a descendant of an ancient lineage that predates even the first werewolves. Healers who could touch silver without harm. Who could speak to animals and plants. Who could see into the heart of things. He paused, watching my reaction closely. A lineage thought to be extinct, hunted to near obliteration generations ago. I shook my head, unable to process his words. That's impossible. I would know if I were something else. Would you? If everyone around you conspired to keep the truth hidden. He reached out slowly, his fingers hovering near my pendant without touching it. This symbol, the crescent moon holding a star. It's the ancient mark of the Lumina healers. The room seemed to spin around me. No, I whispered. No, that can't be right. My mother would have told me. Would she? If telling you meant putting your life at risk? His voice gentled. The Lumina were hunted because of their gifts, particularly their ability to neutralize a werewolf's power temporarily. In the wrong hands, such abilities could topple even the strongest alphas. Memories flashed through my mind. The strange tea my mother brewed when Alpha Gregory visited, how he always seemed less imposing afterward. The warnings never to reveal my affinity for silver. The protective spells sewn into my clothes that I'd assumed were merely a mother's superstition. If what you say is true, I said slowly, why would our Alpha keep me alive at all? Why not kill me as a child? The Alpha King's expression darkened. Because Lumina blood has other uses, particularly for aging alphas, desperate to maintain their power. Horror crept through me as understanding dawned. You mean, consuming the blood of a Lumina can extend an alpha's prime years, strengthening their hold on power. His jaw tightened. It's forbidden magic, blood magic. But there are those who still practice it in secret. I felt ill. And you think our Alpha? I know he has. The evidence is in his unnaturally extended prime, in the mysterious disappearances of healers from surrounding territories over the years. His eyes met mine, fierce and direct, and in his desperation to send you to me as a sacrifice, rather than risk keeping you in his territory any longer. Why would he risk losing me if my blood was valuable to him? Because you're coming into your full power. Soon you'd be strong enough to recognize what he was doing, and perhaps strong enough to stop him. He leaned closer. Tell me, Elizabeth, have you noticed changes recently? Increased sensitivity to others' emotions? Dreams that later came true? Plants responding to your touch in unusual ways? My breath caught. All of those things had been happening over the past year, changes I'd attributed to simply growing older, maturing. I'd hidden them, fearing they would make me seem even stranger to my packmates. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely audible. What do you want from me? For the first time, uncertainty crossed his features. I made a promise long ago to protect the last of the Lumina. I failed to save your grandmother. I will not fail you. My grandmother? The room seemed to tilt. You knew my grandmother? He rose abruptly, moving away from the bed toward the balcony. Dawn approaches, he said, his back to me. You've stayed the night in my bed, as was agreed. You're free to go if you wish. That's it? I demanded, suddenly angry. You tell me everything I've believed about myself is a lie, and then dismiss me? He turned, and the raw emotion in his eyes startled me. I'm offering you a choice, Elizabeth. Something you've rarely been given before. You can return to your pack with your freedom, pretending this night never happened. Or, he hesitated. Or what? Or you can stay. Learn what you truly are. Become what you were born to be. He stepped closer again, intensity radiating from him. But I won't force you. The choice must be yours. Dawn light began to filter through the windows, painting the room in soft gold. The night of my supposed sacrifice was over. I had survived, but nothing would ever be the same. How do I know you're telling the truth? I asked. How do I know this isn't some elaborate trick? He reached slowly into his shirt, withdrawing a pendant identical to the one I wore. The crescent moon holding a star. Because I carry this, given to me by your grandmother with her dying breath, when she made me swear to find and protect her granddaughter. My fingers closed around my own pendant. 2 identical symbols, connecting across time and bloodlines. What's your real name? I whispered, suddenly certain that Alpha King was not how he was truly known. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Dominic Ravenwood, once sworn protector of the Lumina healers. He extended his hand toward me, and now, it seems, protector of the last Lumina, if she'll accept my protection. Outside, the first true rays of sun broke through the storm clouds. Dawn had arrived, and with it, a choice I never imagined I would face. I stared at Dominic's outstretched hand, my mind reeling with revelations. If I took it, I would be stepping into an unknown future, abandoning everything familiar, however flawed it might be. If I refused, I would return to a pack leader who had apparently been using me, perhaps planning to kill me for my blood. The rational choice seemed obvious, yet I hesitated. My mother, I said finally. I can't leave without knowing she's safe. Something like respect flickered in Dominic's eyes. Your loyalty does you credit. He lowered his hand. What would you have me do? Help me get her out, away from Alpha Gregory. He considered this, his expression thoughtful. It would mean challenging another Alpha's authority, starting a conflict. You've already done that by taking me, I pointed out. And by your own admission, he's practicing forbidden blood magic. Doesn't that justify intervention? A slow smile spread across his face, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. You argue your case well, little Lumina. Don't call me that, I said automatically. I don't even know what it means to be whatever you say I am. Fair enough. He moved to a large wooden chest at the foot of the bed and opened it, withdrawing clean clothes. Elizabeth, then. He laid the garments on the bed, simple but well-made trousers, a tunic, and a warm cloak. These should fit well enough. Get dressed. We have plans to make if we're to extract your mother without starting a territory war. I eyed the clothes, then him. Turn around. That smile again, brief but transforming his severe features. Of course. He turned his back, facing the balcony. I changed quickly, discarding my thin robe for the sturdy clothing. The fabric was softer than anything I'd worn before, the cloak lined with fur that warmed me instantly. I'm decent, I announced when finished. He turned, his gaze assessing. Good. Now we... A sharp knock interrupted him. Dominic's expression instantly hardened as he moved to position himself between me and the door. Enter, he commanded. The door opened to reveal a tall man with sharp features and watchful eyes. A born warrior, every movement controlled and precise. My king, he said, bowing slightly. Forgive the intrusion, but we have visitors. Dominic tensed. What visitors? Alpha Gregory Caldwell and a delegation from the Eastern Pack. They're demanding the return of their property. His eyes flicked briefly to me. They're at the gates. Ice flooded my veins. They had come for me, sooner than I would have expected. Had they assumed I would not survive the night? How many? Dominic asked, his voice deceptively calm. 20 warriors, plus the alpha and his beta. A large party for a simple retrieval, Dominic observed. Almost as if they expected resistance, he turned to me. It seems your former alpha is eager to reclaim you. Terror gripped me. He knows, I whispered. He knows you've told me the truth. Dominic's jaw tightened, or he fears I've discovered it myself. He addressed the warrior again. Nathaniel, have them escorted to the Great Hall. Offer refreshments, but no promises. I'll meet with them shortly. Nathaniel bowed again and departed, closing the door behind him. Dominic moved to a weapons rack I hadn't noticed before, partially hidden in an alcove. He selected a gleaming dagger and offered it to me, hilt first. Can you use this if necessary? I took it hesitantly. I'm a healer, not a fighter. Sometimes healing requires cutting away what's diseased, he said grimly. Keep it hidden, but close. I tucked the dagger into my belt, beneath the folds of the tunic. What now? Now, he said, we face your alpha. Together. He studied me intently. Are you afraid? Terrified, I admitted. Good. Fear sharpens the senses. He reached out, adjusting my cloak to better conceal the dagger. Stay close to me. Speak only when spoken to. And remember, you're no longer his to command. We left the chambers, descending the spiral staircase I had climbed the night before. Guards lined the corridors, more than I remembered, all alert and watchful. News of Eastern Pack visitors had clearly put the fortress on edge. As we walked, Dominic spoke in a low voice. Gregory Caldwell has ruled the Eastern Pack for 30 years, far longer than most alphas retain their prime strength. Now we know why. The blood magic, I murmured. Yes, but he's clever. Careful to take only what he could disguise as natural deaths or disappearances. His expression darkened. Your grandmother was different. She knew what he was doing and confronted him. That was her mistake. You said she died. Giving you that pendant? He nodded once, his eyes forward. I was too late to save her, but she told me about you, her daughter's unborn child, made me swear to watch over you from afar until you came of age. You've been watching me all this time? The thought was both comforting and unsettling. From a distance, I couldn't risk Gregory discovering my interest in you. He glanced down at me. When he offered you as a sacrifice, I knew you had begun to manifest your abilities. It was time to intervene. We reached a set of massive wooden doors carved with the same wolf motifs I'd seen throughout the fortress. 2 guards stood at attention, opening the doors as we approached. Dominic paused, looking down at me. Ready? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The great hall stretched before us, cavernous and imposing. Stone columns supported a vaulted ceiling, and massive fireplaces blazed at either end. A long table dominated the center, where several members of the Eastern Pack delegation sat drinking from goblets. At the head of the table stood Alpha Gregory, a man I'd known all my life yet suddenly saw with new eyes. He was tall for an Eastern wolf, with graying brown hair and the muscular build of a man half his age. His face, once familiar, now seemed like a mask concealing something sinister beneath. Beside him stood his beta, Marcus, a brutal enforcer known for his cruelty. All conversation ceased as we entered. Every head turned, every gaze fixed on us as we walked the length of the hall. I kept my chin up, fighting the urge to shrink beneath their scrutiny. Alpha King, Gregory greeted, his voice carrying the forced joviality I now recognized as false. I see our offering survived the night, a pleasant surprise. A surprise indeed, Dominic replied coolly, though I wonder why you thought she wouldn't. Gregory's smile didn't reach his eyes. The girl is frail, unsuited for the rigors of royal attention. I flinched internally at being discussed as if I weren't present, but kept my expression neutral as Dominic had instructed. She proved more resilient than you suggested, Dominic said, guiding me to stand beside him at the opposite end of the table. In fact, I find her quite valuable. Gregory's smile faltered. Valuable. She's a defective healer, nothing more. Barely able to shift. Perhaps that's all you allowed her to be. Dominic's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. But I see much more. Tension crackled in the air between the 2 alphas. I could feel the power emanating from both. Gregory's tainted with something dark and unnatural. Dominic's clean and raw. We've come to retrieve what's ours, Gregory stated, dropping all pretense of friendliness. The girl was sent as a night's entertainment, not a permanent gift. And if I wished to keep her? Dominic's tone was light, but the challenge was unmistakable. Gregory's eyes narrowed. She belongs to our pack, does she? Dominic raised an eyebrow. Tell me, Alpha Caldwell, does your pack make a habit of sacrificing its members? Or was Elizabeth special in some way? A muscle twitched in Gregory's jaw. Our customs are not your concern, Alpha King. They become my concern when they involve blood magic. Dominic let the accusation hang in the air. A ripple of shocked murmurs ran through the hall. Even some of Gregory's own delegation exchanged uneasy glances. Blood magic was taboo, its practice punishable by death under pack law. Gregory's face flushed with anger. You dare accuse me? I do more than accuse, Dominic cut in. I know. As does Elizabeth now. All eyes turned to me. I felt the weight of their stares, but kept my focus on Gregory, watching as calculation replaced anger in his expression. The girl is confused, he said smoothly. Whatever tales she's told you, she's told me nothing, Dominic interrupted again. She didn't need to. The evidence is before us all. He gestured toward Gregory. An alpha maintaining his prime for 3 decades? Healers disappearing throughout the territories? And now, desperate to reclaim the last Lumina before she comes into her full power? Another wave of murmurs, louder this time. The word Lumina passed from lips to ears, a legend suddenly made flesh. Gregory laughed, though the sound held no humor. Lumina? Those are children's tales. The girl is nothing but a weak werewolf, a disappointment to her lineage. Then you won't mind if I test that theory. Dominic gestured, and Nathaniel stepped forward bearing a small wooden box. He opened it to reveal a gleaming silver dagger. Pure silver, deadly to any werewolf. If she's merely a defective werewolf, as you claim, Dominic said, this silver should burn her like any other of our kind. If not... He let the implication hang. Gregory's eyes darted between me and the silver dagger. I could see the calculations running behind his gaze, the desperate search for a way out. This is absurd, he blustered. I won't stand for... It's a simple test, Dominic pressed, unless you already know the outcome. The hall had gone utterly silent. Even the crackling of the fireplaces seemed muted as all watched this confrontation unfold. Dominic removed the dagger from its box and approached me, offering it hilt first. I hesitated only briefly before taking it, wrapping my fingers firmly around the silver handle. No pain, no burning, no smell of searing flesh that should accompany a werewolf touching pure silver. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. Impossible, someone whispered. Lumina, breathed another voice. Gregory's face contorted with fury. Tricks and illusions, he snarled. The dagger is fake. Is it? Dominic took the dagger from my hand, and in one swift movement, made a small cut on his own palm. He hissed as the silver bit into his flesh, the wound smoking slightly before his accelerated healing began to close it. Seems real enough to me. He turned to the gathered wolves. Alpha Gregory Caldwell has been practicing blood magic, draining Lumina healers to extend his power. He has violated our most sacred laws, betrayed his own pack, and attempted to sacrifice the last known Lumina to cover his crimes. Gregory's control finally shattered. She is mine, he roared, his eyes flashing to amber as his wolf surged forward. Her mother, her grandmother, all mine. Their blood, their power, mine by right of conquest. His admission hung in the air, damning and irrefutable. Marcus, his beta, stepped back, shock evident on his face. Others from the Eastern delegation rose from their seats, distancing themselves from their alpha as his madness became apparent. Where is my mother? I demanded, finding my voice at last. What have you done with her? Gregory's eyes fixed on me, hatred burning in their depths. Locked away, little witch. Her usefulness nearly spent. Soon I would have started on you, drop by precious drop, as I did with your grandmother. Rage flared within me, a white-hot fury unlike anything I'd felt before. The dagger in Dominic's hand began to tremble, then flew across the space between us into my outstretched palm. Gasps erupted around the room as I pointed it at Gregory. "You will never touch another healer again," I said, my voice strangely calm, despite the tempest raging inside me. Gregory laughed, the sound edged with madness. "You think a knife will stop me? I've consumed the blood of Lumina for decades. Their power flows through my veins." He lunged forward with supernatural speed, claws extended toward my throat. Several things happened at once. Dominic moved to intercept him. Guards rushed forward, and I raised my hand instinctively. A pulse of energy exploded from my palm, invisible but powerful. It struck Gregory mid-leap, freezing him in place. His body hung suspended, eyes wide with shock and fury. "Impossible," he choked out. "You're untrained, powerless." "Apparently not," I replied, surprising myself with my steadiness. I approached him slowly, the dagger still clutched in my other hand. The effort of holding him immobile made my limbs tremble, but some instinct guided me, drawing on abilities I never knew I possessed. When I stood before him, I leaned close enough to whisper in his ear, "Tell me where my mother is being held." Hatred blazed in his eyes, but something else too, fear. "Northern dungeon, 3rd cell." I stepped back, looking to Dominic. "Send your men, now." Without hesitation, he dispatched Nathaniel and several guards. Then he addressed the Eastern Pact delegation. "You have witnessed your Alpha's confession and crimes. By Pact law, his authority is forfeit. Choose a new leader or face dissolution." Marcus stepped forward hesitantly. "And the girl? What becomes of her?" "Elizabeth remains under my protection," Dominic stated firmly. "As does her mother, when we retrieve her." "And him?" I asked, nodding toward Gregory, still suspended by whatever power flowed through me. Dominic's expression hardened. "Justice demands his execution." "No." The word escaped me before I'd fully formed the thought. All eyes turned to me in surprise, including Dominic's. "No?" he questioned. "After what he's done? The lives he's taken? Including your grandmother's?" I studied Gregory's contorted face, the rage, the madness, the corrupted power. Death would be too quick, too merciful. I turned to Dominic. "You said Lumina can neutralize a werewolf's power, permanently." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "With the right ritual, yes. Then that's his punishment," I declared. "Strip him of his wolf. Let him live as the weakest creature he despises most, a human. Let him age naturally, powerless, watching as everything he stole through blood and murder drains away." Silence filled the hall, then murmurs of approval. Even Marcus nodded, the justice of it evident. "It will be as you say," Dominic agreed. "The punishment fits the crime." My strength was fading, the effort of holding Gregory immobile draining me rapidly. Dominic must have noticed, for he stepped forward, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Enough," he said gently. "You've proven your point. Let our guards secure him now." I released the power with a gasp, staggering slightly as Gregory collapsed to the floor. Guards swarmed him immediately, binding him with silver chains that made him howl in pain. As they dragged him away, he fixed me with a final venomous glare. "This isn't over, witch child. Blood calls to blood, power to power. You'll never be free." I watched him go, feeling neither triumph nor satisfaction, only a bone-deep exhaustion and an urgent need to find my mother. "You did well," Dominic said quietly beside me, better than I could have hoped. I turned to him, suddenly aware of all the eyes still watching us. "I don't understand what just happened, how I did that." "The Lumina gifts," he explained. "They manifest fully when needed most, often triggered by strong emotion." His expression softened slightly. "We'll have time to explore them properly. For now, let's find your mother." As we left the great hall together, I realized I had taken my first steps into a new life, one filled with unknown powers and dangers, but also, perhaps, with truth and freedom. The night in the Alpha King's bed had not ended with my death, but with a rebirth I never could have imagined. And somewhere in the northern dungeon, my mother waited. The final piece of a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. The northern dungeon smelled of mildew and despair, Torches cast wavering shadows across stone walls as we descended a narrow staircase, each step taking us deeper beneath the fortress. Guards led the way, followed by Dominic, with me close behind. The silver dagger remained tucked in my belt, a comforting weight against my hip. "This section hasn't been used in years," Dominic explained, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. "We had no idea Gregory was keeping prisoners here. How could you not know what happens in your own fortress?" I asked, unable to keep the accusation from my voice. He glanced back at me, no anger in his expression, only a weary acceptance of the criticism. "The northern fortress is vast, parts of it ancient, predating even my grandfather's time. Gregory was granted use of the northern wing when he arrived as part of diplomatic courtesy." His jaw tightened. A courtesy he abused. We reached the bottom of the stairs, entering a long corridor lined with iron-barred cells. Most stood empty, their doors hanging open, but toward the end, a single torch burned outside a closed cell. My heart leaped into my throat. "Mother," I whispered, rushing forward. The guard unlocked the cell door with a heavy iron key. I pushed past him the moment the door swung open, stumbling into the dimly lit space. A thin figure lay curled on a straw pallet in the corner, back to the door. My mother's once thick blonde hair, so like my own, hung limp and dull around her shoulders. She didn't move at the sound of the door, didn't acknowledge our presence at all. "Mother?" I knelt beside her, gently touching her shoulder. She flinched, curling tighter into herself. "Mother, it's me, Elizabeth." Slowly, painfully, she turned. The sight of her face made me gasp, gaunt and pale, with dark hollows beneath her eyes. Those eyes, once bright blue and full of wisdom, now stared blankly, struggling to focus. "Elizabeth?" Her voice was a dry whisper. "No. Impossible. You're gone. Sacrificed." "I'm here," I insisted, taking her cold hands in mine. "I survived. Gregory's been captured. You're safe now." Confusion clouded her features. "Gregory..." She tensed, trying to push herself away from me. "Trick. This is a trick." "It's not a trick," I promised, tears welling in my eyes. "Feel me, Mother. I pressed her palm to my cheek, letting her feel my warmth, my tears. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition struggling through layers of fear and disorientation. "Elizabeth," she breathed, more certainty in her voice. "My daughter." Her gaze shifted past me to where Dominic stood watching from the doorway. Fresh fear washed over her face. "No. The Alpha King. You can't be here." "He helped me," I explained quickly. "He protected me. He knows what we are, Mother. What I am." Her eyes widened. "You know? I know we're Lumina," I said softly. "I know Gregory was using you, using us, for blood magic. I know about Grandmother." A sob escaped her. "I tried to protect you, to hide what you are. I understand now." I helped her sit up, supporting her frail body, but no more hiding, no more lies. Dominic approached slowly, kneeling beside us. "Helen Winters," he said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it before. "I made a promise to your mother, a promise I intend to keep." My mother stared at him, recognition dawning. "You were there? When she died?" He nodded once. "I was. Too late to save her, but in time to hear her final wishes." He reached inside his shirt, withdrawing the pendant, twin to the one I wore. She entrusted this to me, along with the duty to protect her daughter and granddaughter. Mother reached out with trembling fingers, touching the pendant. "All these years, you watched over us?" "From a distance, yes, until Gregory forced my hand by sending Elizabeth to me." His eyes met mine briefly, a miscalculation on his part. A weak smile touched my mother's lips. "He never understood. The Lumina. Our power doesn't come from dominance, but from connection." She squeezed my hand. "And love. Can you stand?" I asked, concern washing through me at how frail she felt beneath my hands. "We need to get you out of here." She nodded, though uncertainty clouded her expression. "I think so. Took blood yesterday. I'm still weak." Rage flared inside me again at the thought of Gregory draining my mother's blood, stealing her strength to fuel his perverted power. I felt the same strange energy stirring within me that had manifested in the Great Hall, but I pushed it down. focusing instead on helping my mother to her feet. Dominic stepped forward. "Allow me," he said, and with surprising gentleness, lifted my mother into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, her once strong healer's body reduced to skin and bone. "We'll take her to the eastern chambers," Dominic instructed the guards. "Send for Ilara immediately." "Ilara?" I questioned as we ascended the stairs. "I thought grandmother was dead." "Your grandmother Ilara, yes," he clarified. "But there is another Ilara, a distant cousin of your line. She serves as healer to the northern packs. The one who sent the vial with Mira," I realized. My mother's eyes found mine. "Vial? What vial?" "Moonroot extract," I explained. "Ilara sent it in case the night became too difficult." Understanding flickered in my mother's eyes. "Not moonroot," she whispered. "Lumina elixir, our strength, distilled." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "She was preparing you." We emerged from the dungeon into sunlight streaming through high windows. Servants and guards stared openly as we passed, word of what had happened in the great hall clearly having spread throughout the fortress. I walked beside Dominic as he carried my mother. My head held high despite their curious gazes. The eastern chambers were bright and airy, with large windows overlooking a garden now golden in the autumn sun. Dominic laid my mother gently on a large bed piled with soft blankets. A fire already blazed in the hearth, warming the room. "Rest," he told her. "Ilara will be here soon. You're safe now. Both of you." My mother's eyes held his for a long moment. "Thank you," she said simply. Then she turned to me, reaching for my hand. "My daughter. My brave girl." I sat beside her on the bed, holding her cold fingers between my warm ones. "I should have known," I said. "I should have seen what was happening." She shook her head weakly. "I hid it from you. We all did. Your father, your grandmother, me. We thought it was the only way to keep you safe. Father knew?" This revelation stung unexpectedly. My father had always been distant, uncomfortable around me. I'd attributed it to disappointment in my weakness as a werewolf. "He knew," she confirmed. "It wasn't easy for him, a werewolf mated to a Lumina, raising a daughter who would never truly belong to his world. But he loved us, in his way." Her eyes clouded. "Until Gregory's influence poisoned him against us. Where is he now?" I hadn't seen my father among the Eastern Pact delegation. Pain crossed her face. "Gone. He tried to stop Gregory from taking me, paid with his life. Another loss, another betrayal." I closed my eyes, absorbing this new grief. "I'm sorry," Dominic said from where he stood by the window. "We found a body when we secured the northern wing. I didn't realize he made his choice in the end," my mother said softly, remembered what truly mattered. A knock at the door interrupted us. A young woman entered, tall and slender with silver-streaked black hair and keen eyes that missed nothing. She carried a worn leather bag that gave off the familiar sense of healing herbs. "Ilara," Dominic greeted her. She nodded to him but moved immediately to the bedside, her focus entirely on my mother. "Helen," she said, her voice warm with familiarity. "You've endured much." "As have we all," my mother replied. Ilara turned to me, her gaze intensely analytical. "So you are Elizabeth, the last pure-blooded Lumina." She reached out, touching my cheek with cool fingers. "You've manifested already. I can sense it." "In the Great Hall," Dominic confirmed. "She stopped Gregory mid-attack, held him immobile." Ilara's eyebrows rose. Impressive for one untrained. She set her bag on the bed, opening it to reveal vials and packets of herbs. "But dangerous. Uncontrolled power can turn inward, harm its wielder." "You'll teach her," my mother said. Not a question, but a statement. "If she wishes to learn." Ilara looked at me directly. "The path of a Lumina is not easy, child. Especially now, when so few of us remain." "How many?" I asked. "Pure-blooded like you and your mother?" "Perhaps a dozen scattered across the territories. Mixed-blooded with diluted gifts? Maybe 100. She began mixing herbs in a small bowl. "We survive by staying hidden, using our gifts sparingly. But hiding hasn't protected us," I argued. "Gregory found you anyway. Used you. Killed my grandmother. Elizabeth, my mother cautioned. But Alara raised a hand. She's right, Helen. Our secrecy has become a weakness, not a strength. She added water to her herb mixture, stirring it into a paste. Perhaps it's time for a new approach. Dominic moved closer. What are you suggesting? Alara's eyes met his, then mine. Alliance instead of hiding, protection instead of secrecy. She spread the herbal paste on my mother's wrists, where puncture marks showed Gregory's bloodletting. The Lumina were once advisors to Alpha Kings, valued for our wisdom and healing. Perhaps it's time to reclaim that role. Under whose protection? My mother asked warily. We've seen how Alphas can abuse such arrangements. Mine, Dominic said firmly. As Alpha King, I offer the protection of the Northern Territory to all remaining Lumina. No exploitation, no blood magic, a true alliance. The room fell silent as we absorbed his offer. It was unprecedented, Alphas and Lumina working openly together after generations of persecution and hiding. And what would you expect in return? I asked, still cautious despite everything he'd done to help us. Your counsel, he replied simply. Your healing, your perspective. Nothing more. And if we refuse? My mother's voice was weak but determined. Then you remain free to go wherever you wish, he said. My protection extends regardless of your choice to stay or leave. I studied him, searching for deception, but finding none. Why would you do this? What do you gain? A shadow passed over his features. I watched your grandmother die because an Alpha abused his power. I've seen territories torn apart by leaders drunk on their own strength, with no wisdom to temper it. He met my gaze directly. The old ways weren't just about power, Elizabeth. They were about balance. Alphas provided strength and protection. Lumina provided healing and wisdom. Together, they created something greater than either could alone. A romantic notion, Alara commented, though not unkindly. But can it work in these times? It must, Dominic said with quiet intensity. Or we're all doomed to repeat the same cycles of violence and power hunting that have plagued our kinds for generations. My mother's hand tightened around mine. It's your choice, Elizabeth, she said softly. You're the future of our line now. I looked between them. My mother, frail but resilient. Alara, practical and wise. And Dominic, the Alpha King who had spared my life and offered a new path forward. The weight of the decision pressed down on me. The future of the Lumina seemingly resting on my shoulders. I need time, I said finally. Time to understand what I am, what I can do. Of course, Dominic agreed. Take all the time you need. You're under no obligation. Alara finished tending to my mother and packed away her supplies. I'll return tomorrow, she promised. We'll begin your training then, if you wish. After she left, Dominic moved toward the door. You should rest, he said. Both of you. Guards will remain outside if you need anything. As he turned to leave, I called after him. Dominic. He paused, looking back. This was the first time I'd used his name rather than his title. Thank you, I said simply. For keeping your promise to my grandmother. Something softened in his expression. Get some rest, Elizabeth. Tomorrow brings new challenges. After he departed, I turned back to my mother, who watched me with knowing eyes. He's not what I expected, I admitted. The Alpha King? She smiled faintly. No, I imagine not. He could have used me as Gregory did, taken my blood. Instead, he offered protection. Not all Alphas are like Gregory, she murmured, her eyes growing heavy as Alara's healing paste took effect. Your grandmother used to say we must judge each soul by its actions, not its nature. As she drifted to sleep, I moved to the window, gazing out at the fortress grounds below. Wolves in human form went about their duties, training, carrying supplies, standing guard. Beyond them stretched forests and mountains, territories I'd never seen, a world I'd never been free to explore. For the first time in my life, I felt possibility opening before me. Not just survival, but living. Not just hiding, but becoming. Night had fallen by the time I left my mother's side, assured that she was sleeping peacefully. I found myself drawn back to Dominic's chambers, retracing the path I'd walked the previous night as a sacrificial offering. This time, I moved freely. No guards flanking me, no death sentence hanging over my head. I knocked on the massive wooden door, suddenly uncertain of my purpose in coming here. "Enter," came his voice from within. He stood by the fireplace, much as he had the night before, though this time he turned immediately at my entrance. Surprise registered briefly on his face. "Elizabeth, is everything all right? Your mother—" "She's resting," I assured him. "Sleeping peacefully." He nodded, relief evident in the slight relaxation of his shoulders. "Good, that's good." We stood in awkward silence for a moment, the vast chamber suddenly feeling too intimate. "I wanted to ask you something," I said finally. "Of course." I moved closer, stopping a few paces from him. "Last night, when you said I could leave at any time, was that true? Or was it a test?" He considered me thoughtfully. "It was true, and perhaps also a test, though not in the way you might think." "What do you mean?" "I needed to know if you would choose your own path, or simply follow the one laid before you." His eyes reflected the firelight. "Illumina's power is in her choices, Elizabeth, in her will. If you had stayed out of fear or obligation, your gifts would never fully manifest. And if I had left, I would have let you go," he said simply, "and hoped our paths might cross again someday." Another silence fell between us, this one charged with unspoken possibilities. "The future you described," I said carefully. "Alphas and Lumina working together. Is it truly possible?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I believe it's worth trying." He took a step closer. "You showed remarkable strength today. Not just in your power, but in your mercy toward Gregory." "It wasn't mercy," I countered. "Living without his wolf, without power. For him, that's worse than death, perhaps. But it was justice, not vengeance." His expression grew serious. "It's why I believe you could help reshape the territories, Elizabeth. Not just as a Lumina, but as the woman you are." My heart quickened at his words, at the respect evident in his tone. No one had ever spoken to me this way. As if I mattered, as if my thoughts and choices held weight. "I'll stay," I said, the decision crystallizing as I spoke it, "at least until my mother is fully recovered. Until I understand what I am and what I can do." Relief washed across his features, quickly masked but unmistakable. "The Northern Territory welcomes you, Elizabeth Winters, as does its king." Our eyes held for a long moment, and I felt something shift between us, something that had begun the night I survived in his bed and had deepened through the trials of the day. Not romance, not yet, but possibility. Recognition of kindred spirits bound by promises and choices. Outside, wolves howled in the distance, not in mourning or hunger, but in the simple joy of running beneath the stars. For the first time, I didn't hear their cries as something alien to me, but as a song I might someday understand. I was neither wolf nor ordinary human. I was Lumina, the last of my bloodline perhaps, but not the end of my kind story. Whatever path stretched before me, I would walk it with open eyes and an unbroken spirit. The night that was meant to end in my death had instead given birth to a new beginning, not just for me, but perhaps for all those caught between worlds of power and wisdom, strength and healing. The future remained unwritten, full of dangers and possibilities in equal measure. But for now, standing in the chambers of the Alpha King who had become my unlikely ally, I felt something I had never truly known before. I felt free.